This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, guys. Sorry for the delay. There was some problem with connecting. My apologies for that. Right, let's get started. Okay, so are you able to see my screen, guys?
You can see it.
Okay, great. Right. So we have been discussing various topics on identity and access management in last few classes, right? Last 3 or 4 classes. Now, as I said, we are done with the identity and access management. We will try to go ahead and understand few concepts of recovery services or disaster recovery and migrations, right? So very important concepts which will be kind of where we'll be seeing how do we go and have a disaster recovery solutions for your organization. We'll also cover something called as migrations, right? So where you may have to move your workloads from on premises to your cloud or from some other cloud to Azure, right? So those are the situations and scenarios where we get into, right? Now to start with, let us start with the disaster recovery enablement, and then we'll slowly switch into the migrations, because the tool that what we use for both these is same, which is nothing but your site recovery. Azure Site Recovery is the tool that which we use, right? So that's the reason these two can be combined. So Azure Site Recovery tool is what we use, right? Now let us try to understand first about disaster recovery, right? Now, when we talk about the disaster recovery, we call it as BCDR, right? So if you are aware of this, if you heard about this, then we call it as BCDR. What it means, what is the full form of this is business continuity, right? And disaster recovery. Disaster. Now, this is a solution that which most of the organizations want. Let us say that you have a very critical applications which without which your organization will not function or your business will not work. And there is a lot of money generation using some tool that which is very much needed and without which your business will die, right? Those are the situations where you don't want to take any risk, and what you do, you go and set up a disaster recovery plan in case even if one of the site goes down or the servers in one sites are not accessible, they should be accessible in some other means, in some other location. That's what you call it as business continuity, right? And during the disaster recovery as well, disaster situations, right, like kind of floods or earthquakes and so on, right? So those type of situations also, you don't want to have your organization losing access to those critical applications without which you cannot sustain or your organization cannot sustain, right? Now, those situations will demand or ask for these particular additional, what do you call it as, um, solution apart from the normal VMs that whatever you have on premises, right? Let us try to compare this with your on premises environment. Let us say that you are not into cloud, and your workloads are purely on your on-premises running or data centers. Now, how does this business continuity or disaster recovery will work without cloud? So what you do, you go and to a different location and you set up a separate data center there, and you build your servers, and then you try to replicate the configuration that whatever you have here on the production environment to another site, that what you call it as disaster recovery site. And whenever the situations that which demands or requires to move these workloads, or your production environment is not accessible, then you either switch over to your disaster site, or you make some configuration required to point your users to that disaster recovery site, right? That's how it will be. The disaster recovery solutions, it can be kind of you set it up and bring it up whenever you need, or it can be a restoration as well, right? So few organizations will do, rather going and setting up everything in advance, they have some timelines within which they want those things to be restored. That is also there. So it varies from organization to organization how the disaster solution will work, recovery solution will work. And there are again SLAs around that. If you are a support, if you are supporting one of your customer and disaster recovery part of your support, then you have very stringent SLAs, and you know, a lot of penalties around that if we are not going to kind of you know, recover the solution, you know, in whatever the way it is expected, right? And you have tests periodically, right? So if you are a huge organization, then there will be standards around the disaster recovery test, where you go and test your disaster recovery solutions once in a year or a couple of times in a year as well, right? Those are the standards that which organization follows. That is the reason disaster recovery and business continuity is a critical part of any business. Okay, now that's fine. So if you compare this, if you look at why I need to go into cloud for my disaster recovery solution. Let us say that I am onto on-prem. I can still use my Azure cloud as a disaster recovery point. Whether it could be a physical server, whether it could be a virtual server, I still want to use Azure as a disaster recovery point, so that my users will connect to Azure resources whenever my on-premises is not available. That is one way of doing it. Okay, now let us say that you are 100% on cloud, 100% on cloud, and you have all your workload in central US. Central US. Now, what if the central US location itself is not available, right? So to avoid these type of situations, you may want to have this workload, whatever you have in this particular location, to be replicated to a different region or location, right? I may want to put them in East US, in America, right? So that is possible. So Azure provides you a solution for that, which is nothing but your disaster recovery solution, right? We'll go and see that how do we enable that and all those things, but these are certain things that which are needed. Now, what are the different steps involved when you go and create a disaster recovery solution or disaster recovery within Azure, right? So you have a source. We'll go and see for one VM, source VM, right? And you'll have an exact replica of this VM on the other side, right? In our case, it is East US. We'll select East US, and the source VM, let us say that it is in Central US. Right? So this is the first step. Now, once you are done with this creation, what it does, it basically replicates. It replicates all your virtual machines, or virtual machine rather, if it is one, to the other region. And it also creates a VNet. It also creates a resource group. It creates a VNet, and it creates a subnet. One second, guys. Sorry for that. Okay, so it creates a VNet, it creates a subnet, and it creates a resource group. And it also needs some other resources that whatever are needed for your VM. Whenever you create a VM, right, you specify all those things. All those things anyway will be part of your replication. If you are not specifying them explicitly, it picks some default names, right? It picks some default names. That's how it will run. Okay. Now, once the replication is done, can we say that are we ready for a disaster recovery with disaster recovery solution? It is no. Now, before you go and commit and say that, you know, the solution that whatever I have in another region, which is an exact replica of my central US, you need to go and test it. That's where your testing will come into picture, right? So your recovery services will provide you an option to go and test your VMs that whatever you replicated, right? You test. Once you test and then confirm that the test is working as expected, then Azure makes that as a recovery point which is tested and it is working fine, will be used in future for recovery, right? So that level of testing you should be doing. Otherwise, during the actual DR situation, your applications may not work, though you have a replica of your VM, right? So to avoid all those things, you definitely have to do a testing and then commit that, right? Say that, okay, I am tested and all is working fine. Then what you can do is you can go and perform the DR test. Perform DR. Right? These are the steps that which you'll be doing. So when you perform the disaster recovery, what it does is basically see how it will be. I mean, your VMs will be not accessible anyway on the production environment, right? So when you do a DR here, failover here, what it does is it basically takes down your VM. What does it mean? It means that it stops. When we say stop, what will happen when you stop it? It deallocates. Deallocates. And then it will create another VM with the same name in a different geographical location, right? In the testing phase, what it does is it creates a test VM in your DR test, in our DRs, in DR site. In our case, in East US, right? It creates a test VM. And during the test VM creation, it will not disturb the source VM because it will does that in an isolation environment. When you perform the DR, it will kind of validate and power off the actual source VM. Okay, right? That's how your disaster recovery solution will work. Okay, so we'll see this practically how it works and other stuff. These are the different steps, and this is some theory around that. Okay, let us quickly go to our portal and go to the VM. Let me say that I have this particular VM, which is VM2, which is running in central US, and I want to go and have what do you call it as a replica of this machine in another region for our disaster recovery purpose, right? Let me go to the VM itself and go and select. There is an option here. If you see it below the backup, you have something called as disaster recovery solution. Below this backup, you have a disaster recovery solution, right? Now this disaster recovery option, that whatever you have, it will help you to go ahead and configure your disaster recovery for this particular VM. Now if you look into this, what it does is it basically gives you the source region. It says central US, and then select the target region. You have multiple target regions for this particular source. If you go and select the drop down, you will see different target regions. If you go and select East US, then your target region will be the East US, right? And there are multiple, if you see it, pointing to this particular region, you have another I think around 7 additional or 6 additional regions to which you can have a disaster. Let us quickly look at the advanced settings. Advanced settings will help you to go and configure, right, your resource group, your VNets, and your what do you call it as availability, which means that you have a single VM, or you have an availability set, or you want an availability zone, right? So I'll leave that as a single instance. If you have an availability set, we know that what an availability set is, right? A fault domains, update domains, all those things will come into the availability set. And if you have availability zone, you can go with the availability zone as well, right? Now I'll go and select a single VM, and you can also specify a few other details like, storage details, replication settings, right? What is the recovery vault it has to use, and what is the resource group within the recovery vault it has to use, and then the replication policy, right? 24-hour retention policy. And if you have any extensions that needs to be installed, then you can go with the extension settings, right? Allow Azure Site Recovery to manage, or manage it manually. So what it does, it basically Azure Site Recovery itself manages your entire settings, or if you want to do it manually, you can do it manually as well, right? So it needs some automation account, that's what it creates, and so on, right? Let us go and review and start replication, right? So these are the different settings. I picked most default ones, and you can start the replication. So what it does is it basically creates your recovery vault with those settings, where you can have your exact copy of your virtual machine in a different location, right? Let us go to the deployment process. Right, it creates all the resources. That's what you're seeing. It's creating a VNet, and then it creates the additional resources, whatever are needed. Okay, so we'll come back to that. It'll take somewhere around an hour or so, more than that. Tomorrow, before our class, I'll have all these things ready. I just want to show how do we enable that. And then once we have this replication and other thing in place, then I'll show you how does the replication work. So we cannot wait for that 1.5 hours. So what we do is we initiate that, and then I'll anyway clean it up after this class. Then tomorrow when we come back, we'll see those resources whatever got replicated, and then we'll try to do a test, and then we'll try to go and what do you call it as do a disaster recovery of that particular resource. That's how we will go with that one. Okay, now let us move on with other concepts. Okay, so there is, I am discussing both the site recovery within the site recovery, both the disaster recovery as well as migration in a single topic. Okay, because these two are used in a single what do you call it as site recovery concept, right? Now before we go into the migrations, right, so there is something called as migration rationalization, or they call it as 6 R's or 5 R's, right? So very important. Now these guys, AWS has 6 R's. I mean, almost the concepts are same, little maybe difference in the way they explain, but in Azure we use a 5 R's, and it tells basically what are those situations when you want to migrate your VMs to the cloud, right? Now based on your requirement, these are the different R's that which define, or will help you to make that strategy, right? The first one, what we see it as a rehost, and second one is refactor, third one is a re-architect, fourth one is rebuild, fifth one is replace. Now these are the 5 different situations that demands organizations to move to the cloud, or these are the 5 different strategies, we can call it as, that is needed to either move or replace or get rid of the things, right? So this is before the assessment phase. You go and look all these things, right? Now let us say that me as an organization, my organization decided to get into the cloud solution. So I want to move my workloads to cloud. That's what the requirement now. Okay, so before I move the resources to cloud, I need to basically look at what are the different types of workloads I have on premises? Are they really compatible with cloud? If they are compatible, then what is the solution I use? Do I need to move the VMs as is? Or can I go and look at some other means of using the cloud solution like refactor or re-architecting and so on, right? These are the different options that which you have, right? Let us quickly discuss one by one. The first one is rehost. When we say about rehost, we can call it as lift and shift, where you just straight away move all your VMs from your cloud, from your on premises to cloud, right? Where you move all your resources from your on premises to cloud, which means that you are moving your VMs as is. So if I have a VM1 on premises, I will move VM1 as is to cloud, right? Now what are those things that which will force you to get into this this migration model, right? Now one, reducing the capital expenses, right? We had discussed when we were discussing about initial classes, what are the advantages that which you get to when you move to the cloud. You either reduce capital and operational expenses, right? So buying the new hardware and so on, right? So refreshing the hardware and so on, right? So that's where your reduction in the capital expense, and you are freeing up your data center space, or rapid return on investment, ROI, right? So these are situations. So what you do, you basically go and assess your VM requirement and then move them to the cloud by using some migration tools. That's very straightforward. The second one is refactor. Now in refactor, on premises, let us say that you have an application running on a VM, but that is available as a service in platform as service, which means that you have that service available as an application. For example, a web server which is running on premises, and you have that IaaS web services on Azure, you can go and use it as a service rather building a new VM and then put in IaaS on top of it and then configure it, right? So you are converting your virtual machine hosted on premises application into something called as platform as service. Or let us say that you have a database server, right? On premises, how you will do it? You will put a VM on top of it. You install your database application, the SQL, and then you create a database instance, right? If you have that as a service where Microsoft manages the underlying operating system and other stuff, it gives you directly the database itself, where you can go and create the database instance rather installing the VM and putting the SQL server on top of it and then configuring the instances that whatever you need. What you are getting from platform as services, you get the service itself, database itself as a service. So you are moving the workload which is on VM into platform as service, that you can call it as refactor, right? Now what are those things that which you get advantages? You get faster and shorter updates, code portability, and greater cloud efficiency, right? Less headache, right? The other one is re-architecting. Now let us say that you have age-old applications and you want to move them by re-architecting. You re-architect it and move them to cloud with the solutions that whatever you have on cloud, right? That is another what you call it as a situation where you get into cloud, right? So you can see it, application scale and agility, easier adoption in the cloud capabilities, and mix of technology stacks. If you have old application which is kind of not end of life and so on, you can migrate that into a new application within the cloud, and that's the re-architecting, right? And then next one is rebuild, right? A rebuild is basically it's almost like your what do you call it as re-architect, right? So if you're trying to get into the new application model where you have some new ways of getting your apps work, and where you reduce the operational cost and so on, that's where you get into the rebuild, right? So that's what they say, carry forward an application can be too large to justify further investment. This is especially true for the application that is used to meet the ends of the business, right? These type of situations you get into rebuild. And the last one is replace itself, right? You're replacing, in the earlier situation, we replaced this platform as service. We are using the same service. When you go with platform as service, you are using the same service. But here in replace, you replace one application with another application, right? Now, if application X has a similar solution on cloud with an application called Y, then you just move, get rid of application X and move to application Y, which is available on cloud, right? So, as standardize as per the industry practices, right? Reallocate the development investments and so on, right? Now, you as an infrastructure guy, right? So, if you are into an infrastructure guy, so you will be mostly kind of doing rehost. And then refactor anyway, we will, if it is moving to PaaS, we will not get into much there. And you will be working on the re-architecting and other stuff, right? Rebuild also, right? So these are 5 different R's, and just I suggest you to go the 6 R's of AWS as well, which are similar in situation. So you can either go with going through the 6 R's here, that whatever you have, or 5 R's that whatever you have here, because these are few questions that which will be asked in the interviews, right? So refactoring and other stuff, okay, right? So this is about the the rationalization or 5 R's of rationalization, right? Now let us say that you decided to migrate, right? You decided to migrate. Now, what are the different phases of migration, right? So you as an organization decided to migrate to cloud, and there should be lot and work that which you will be doing before you straight away go and migrate. It's not so easy and so simple where you use a tool and go and migrate, that what we do in the lab, right? So no, not at all. So there are multiple phases within the migration itself. If you see it within the migration process, you see 4 different phases, and each phase again got multiple steps. The first phase you call it as assessment phase, second phase you migrate itself, then you optimize, and then you secure that environment and you manage it, right? Manage is nothing but secure and manage what is daily operations part. Now the first step during the migration process is the assessment phase, right? Where you go and assess your resources. Now to assess these resources, that whatever you have either multiple tools, or you talk to the stakeholders, you involve different support teams, take inputs from them, and you use some discovery tools, understand what application requirement is what is the CPU memory of all these VMs, and is that capability or capacity whatever is right now to individual VMs is enough? Is it over committed? Is it over resourced or under resourced? All those things you go and evaluate before you actually migrate your workloads to cloud. Now that's where your assessment phase will come into picture, right? That's where your assessment phase will come into picture. Of course, there are tools for this. There are tools for this to go and assess your environment, right? Now here is how some what do you call it as tools that which you see. We'll go and look into that in detail, but let me go and see. Okay, now in the assessment phase, here is what you do. You go and create a cloud migration plan, which is nothing but your project management plan, you can also call it as. Involve the stakeholders, talk to the different application owners, application vendors, compatibility check, dependencies across multiple servers, and all these things you definitely have to involve most of this, all the stakeholders within your organization, whoever is having a direct or indirect involvement of the usage of these particular applications, right? So migration plan, talk to the stakeholders using meetings or workshops or brainstorming sessions or whatever. Then you calculate the total cost of ownership, right? So what is this total cost of ownership, right? So you come to a point where, okay, this is the server that which I need, this much CPU, this much memory, this is the operating system, this much disk, and this is the speed of the disk that which I want, and so on. Do I need a high availability solution? If yes, do I need to go with scale sets, zones, and all those things you calculate here, right? And then you will come to a cost perspective as well here, calculate your to see. And then you discover your applications and evaluate the application. So here you use some tools, right? There are multiple tools. So you, before you start any migration, you have to perform all these activities, right? Before you start any migration, you will perform all these activities, right? Plan, involve stakeholders, calculate, and again, it's not you who will be doing everything. There will be multiple teams involved: project managers, architects, and then subject matter experts and normal, admins, Azure admins. Now, what are the tools that which are available for this tools, which we are saying for discovery and evaluation, right? You have multiple tools, and Azure comes with own tool, call it as Azure Migrate, and you see some other tools, and there are some third-party tools also. There are advantages of using the third-party tools, which we will be discussing, but it incurs additional cost, right, to the organization. We had seen people projects using Azure Site Recovery solution for migration as well. It works pretty well, but the advantages, you definitely have something when you go with the third-party tools, which we will be discussing maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow, right? Now, no cost tool, if you look at these advanced features, no cost tool, and then assessment of VMware and Hyper-V is under preview. So right now you have assessment tool for your VMware environment, right? Not for Hyper-V. If it is not yet in production, though you have it, but right. So what you see, the other solutions that what you have is doesn't have that, but here the tools that whatever you use, there are some other tools like Zerto or Rackspace tools and few other tools which we'll be discussing tomorrow. They also have ability to migrate from any source environment to any cloud environment. Let us say that you are organization where you're planning to put workloads in different clouds, Azure, AWS, and GCP, and you may want to have some tool which is compatible with all these things. Those type of situations, you can go with a tool which helps you to migrate your workloads to any of the cloud, or it can be physical to cloud or virtual to cloud, right? Now, if it is physical to cloud, then how do you do that? If it is virtual to cloud, what virtualization environment? Is it VMware? Is it Hyper-V? Is it Zen server? Is it any other hypervisor? So based on your requirement, you go and look at the migration tools that whatever you need. And then if you're going with some third-party tools, you definitely have an advantage, as I said, but you definitely will be paying more. Okay. Now this tool, what does it do? It basically helps you to go and look at the environment, right? Let me quickly go and show you that. Now this migration tool that what Azure Migrate is a appliance, right? What is that? It is an appliance. You will get a Windows 2016 appliance, which you go and import that onto your environment, right? Which you go and import that onto your environment. Let me quickly show you if I can. Okay, not this. Give me a minute. Right, you see this Azure Migrate, it's just a OVA file which you go and import onto your VMware environment. Now what it is it's basically a Windows operating system which is loaded with your migration tool that whatever is needed to migrate your resources. Right, we'll be seeing this tool tomorrow to understand how exactly we can use this tool for assessment. Again, this is not a migration tool, okay? This is migration assessment tool, which will help you to assess or evaluate the current environment, dependencies between the servers, utilization of the servers, all these things you can evaluate using this Azure Migrate tool. So what it basically does is it extracts the inventory of your VMware vCenter, and then it also goes and reads your performance data, whatever you have on your VMware environment, and it will give you, it will also goes and scans the servers to identify if it can get the dependencies across between different machines. You can see this diagram, right? So at this level you can get the data, right? So we'll see that tomorrow, how do we use that and other stuff. So it's very simple, straightforward. You go and download this and then import that OVA file. Then you configure that OVA file. What is that configuration and all those things we'll see tomorrow, right? So this migration assessment tool will help you to assess the environment. So once you assess the environment, you will know what is what VM has what capacity, and how much it is utilized, and so on. Then you go with the actual migration itself, right? Then you will go with actual migration itself, right? If you see it, this is a Windows machine, right? Let me quickly get into that and show you how it looks like. Right here, when you get into it, you'll see a tool on the desktop itself, on your desktop, whichever the ID that which you log in. It's called as Run Collector, right? This Run Collector tool basically helps you to connect to your Azure as well as to connect to your hypervisors or your vCenter servers, right? So this setup will help you to connect to your Azure environment, where you go and create something called as project, and to that project all the data will be fed. And to feed that data, this tool has to talk to your underlying vCenter, right? If it is a VMware environment, vCenter. If it is a Hyper-V environment, I see that there is part, this is still under preview for Hyper-V, where you don't get required support, but you can still go and use that as well. Or you can use any third-party tool for the assessment, okay? Let me quickly see if once that launches, let me quickly explain you that. Just waiting for that to come up. So what you need to do is download this file. I think it is somewhere around 20 GB if I'm not wrong. And then configure your environment to point to your cloud project and the what do you call it as your vCenter server itself, right? I'm just waiting for that to come up. Okay, it's taking some time. I'm not sure if got some issue, but this is how it will work. Okay, I can see there's something happening. Right. Now what you see here is this tool will talk to your cloud environment. That's the reason you need an internet connectivity, because I don't have an internet connection. Let's see, there is a red mark here, which I will fix it tomorrow. And there's time synchronization, and there is Azure Collect service, and then it will also check something called as Power CLI, VMware Power CLI, right? So those should be installed. And then you specify your vCenter details, which means that you are basically authenticating yourself to your vCenter by providing your vCenter server IP address or vCenter server URL, and then credentials to authenticate. Then you authenticate to the Azure using this specify migration project. Then you will view the collected progress, or the data will be collected and it will be fed to your Azure project. And it will take a couple of hours to get that replication done and so on, that we will be seeing tomorrow. But this is a tool, very important tool, that which we are going to look at tomorrow, right? You can also go with the third-party tools. As I said, those are also available. Okay, right. So that is a lab that which we will be using. Hopefully everything works fine. Then I will be able to show you the migration, right? Let me go and see where our recovery point is. Right, it is enabling the replication. That's what it says. Right. You can see enable replication is in progress, which means that this item is getting replicated. Once the replication is done, then your disaster recovery VM is ready. Then you go and test it, right? So that's what it will happen. Right, we'll go and look all those things tomorrow. Then I think I may have to stop here itself for today, because I'll set up the environment for tomorrow's migration, and then we'll quickly look at how do we assess this environment and see what is that we need to do for migrations. Okay, so if you have any questions in today's topic or in the topic that whatever you discussed earlier, then you can ask. Okay, so if no questions, we'll continue with this same topic. It will be kind of 2 or 3 days topic, guys. So because of this, the time that what it consumes to replicate and other stuff, we may have to split them into 2 or 3. And I'll see if I can cover one more topic, which is backup in the middle of this replication and whatever. But we are going to use this 3 days for this migration strategies, migration requirements, and migration assessment and migrations itself, right? So just bear with me on these 3 days. We may have to kind of either extend or we may have to wind up little early. Okay, yeah. If you have any questions, you can ask. If no, then I think we'll catch up tomorrow at the same time. But don't miss tomorrow's and day after tomorrow's classes. Okay.
Thank you, Vijay.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Bye.